We're diving deep into the top 3 most valuable barber quarter dollars ever discovered. Could be worth thousands or even millions of dollars. That's the hidden treasure behind the rarest barber quarter dollars, minted over a century ago. These coins carry not only incredible history, but jaw-dropping value that collectors would pay a fortune. This is the story of the 1893-era barber quarter dollar, one of the most fascinating coins in the world of numismatics. And if you think all old quarters are the same, you're about to find out just how wrong that is. Because what separates an ordinary barber quarter from one that sells for the price of a car, or even more, comes down to details so tiny that only the sharpest eyes will ever spot them. That's what makes this story so exciting. So stay with me until the end, because by the time we're finished, you'll know exactly why these coins are so rare, how they came to be, and what kind of jaw-dropping values they can reach in today's market. The barber quarter itself was born in the 1890s, a time when the United States Mint was in desperate need of a new design. The seated Liberty design had been on quarters for decades, and by the late 19th century, Americans were calling for something fresh, something more modern. Enter Charles E. Barber, the chief engraver of the U.S. Mint. Barber designed the new quarter, which debuted in 1892, and would come to be known simply as the barber quarter. On the obverse, Liberty wears a cap and laurel wreath, her face stern and classical, almost Roman in style. On the reverse, the familiar heraldic eagle clutches arrows and an olive branch. It was a sturdy, no-nonsense design meant to carry the nation into a new era of coinage. Error coins happen when something goes wrong during the minting process. It could be a misaligned die, a double strike, a planchette flaw, or even a completely wrong planchette, a quarter struck on a dime blank, for example. Each type of error creates a coin that was never meant to exist, a one-of-a-kind piece that collectors drool over. And because quality control in the 1890s was far less strict than it is today, the chances for weird mistakes were higher. Some 1893 barber quarters show dramatic off-center strikes, with Liberty's face sliding halfway off the coin. Others show double dies, where parts of the design look like they've been stamped twice. There are even cases of barber quarters struck on thinner or smaller plankets, giving them a completely different look and feel. These are the types of errors that transform an ordinary coin into a 5-figure treasure. The value of an 1893-era barber quarter depends on a few key factors. First, the type of error. A minor misstrike might add some value, but a dramatic off-center strike or a bold double die can multiply the price many times over. Second, the condition of the coin. An error that's crisp and sharp, with minimal wear, will always command higher bids. And third, the rarity of that specific error. If only a handful are known to exist, collectors will fight tooth and nail to add one to their collection. That's where those big numbers come in. Some auctions have seen collectors bidding feverishly, pushing the price well beyond expectations, just to secure an elusive 1893-era barber quarter. Collectors today are constantly on the hunt for barber quarters, and the 1893 is one of the key dates. Even in regular form, without errors, it's desirable. But with an error, it's in a league of its own. The market has shown time and again that collectors are willing to pay eye-popping sums for high-quality error coins. One dramatic off-center 1893 barber quarter, for instance, sold at auction for well over $15,000. Another, with a bold double die reverse, fetched nearly $19,000. And in one particularly intense bidding war, an extremely rare 1893-era barber quarter sold for a staggering $26,000. These aren't just rumors, they're real numbers from real auctions. And they show just how valuable these coins can be when the right combination of rarity, condition, and demand come together. So when you hear someone mention the 1893 barber quarter, remember that it's not just an old piece of silver, it's a potential treasure. It's a coin that, under the right circumstances, can transform from pocket change into a $26,000 prize. And the best part is, anyone could find one. It might be sitting in a relative's collection. It might show up at a flea market or a garage sale. Or it might even be hiding in your own coin jar, just waiting for you to take a closer look. That's the thrill of coin collecting, the reason people all over the world are drawn to it. Because every coin has a story, and some stories are worth far more than 25 cents. That's the kind of jaw-dropping value we're talking about with the 1896-era Barber quarter dollar. And what makes it even more exciting is that these coins can still be hiding today, tucked away in old collections, forgotten in drawers, or passed down through families who never realized the fortune sitting right under their noses. This isn't just a coin, it's a treasure. And by the time we're done, you'll know exactly why collectors will stop at nothing to own one of these extraordinary rarities. The Barber quarter, designed by Charles E. Barber, had only been introduced a few years earlier, in 1892. By 1896, the design was still relatively new, but it had already become the face of American coinage for everyday transactions. Liberty, with her classical profile, laurel wreath, and Phrygian cap, symbolized the nation's strength and dignity. The reverse carried the heraldic eagle, wings spread wide, clutching arrows and an olive branch, a powerful emblem of America's resolve in a time of great change. It was the Gilded Age, an era of industry, invention, and expansion, and coins like the Barber quarter passed through millions of hands each day. A quarter was serious money in 1896, worth several hours of labor for many workers, enough to put food on the table or buy a ticket across town. These coins weren't just symbols, they were lifelines. So what kinds of errors are we talking about? Some 1896 Barber quarters show dramatic off-center strikes, where Liberty's face or the eagle on the reverse seems to slide halfway off the coin. Others reveal doubled dies, where lettering or design elements look like they've been stamped twice, giving the coin a ghostly, doubled appearance. There are even cases where a Barber quarter was struck on the wrong planchette, perhaps on a dime blank or a foreign coin blank that was mixed into the minting process. Each of these mistakes creates a unique, one-of-a-kind rarity, and it's precisely those mistakes that collectors will pay insane amounts of money to own. Because in numismatics, rarity is king, and nothing is rarer than a coin that was never supposed to exist. Let's talk about value for a moment. An ordinary 1896 Barber quarter in worn condition might fetch $2,500 to $4,000. A higher-grade example with sharp details could go for a few hundred or even $1,000. But throw an error into the mix, and suddenly the value explodes. A dramatic off-center strike might bring $30,000 at auction. A bold double die could soar to $36,000, and an extremely rare wrong planchette error, say a quarter struck on a dime or even a foreign silver blank, could push the price past $40,000 to $1,000. These aren't hypothetical numbers. These are real prices that collectors have paid, driven by the hunger to own a piece of numismatic history, so rare that only a handful may exist. The story of one coin makes this especially vivid. An 1896 Barber quarter with a spectacular off-center strike was discovered in a private collection, hidden for decades. When it finally hit the auction block, experts expected it to sell for around $10,000. But as bidding heated up, collectors drove the price higher and higher, finally closing at an astonishing $36,000. That one coin, originally worth just 25 cents, sold for the price of a luxury car. Another example, a wrong planchette error, shocked the numismatic world when it brought in $40,000 to $1,000 at auction. These sales prove beyond doubt that the market for Barber quarter errors is not only strong, it's fierce. So the next time you see a Barber quarter, don't just glance at it, hold it up. Look closely at the details, check the lettering, the rims, the alignment. Because what might seem like a simple old coin could turn out to be a fortune in disguise. The 1896 era Barber quarter proves that even the smallest piece of silver can carry a story worth telling, and a value worth dreaming about. The 1898 Barber quarter dollar. Imagine for a moment holding a coin that once jingled in the pocket of an American in the late 19th century, a coin that could buy a hearty meal, a train ticket, or a night's stay in a boarding house. To most people then, it was nothing more than 25 cents, just part of the daily grind. But to collectors today, one of these same coins can represent a fortune, especially when struck with one of those rare minting errors that transform an ordinary piece of silver into something priceless. We're not just talking about a few $100s, not even a few thousand. The Barber quarter had already been in circulation for a few years by 1898, designed by Charles E. Barber, the chief engraver of the mint. Its obverse carried the stern classical head of Liberty, crowned with a wreath, while the reverse displayed the mighty heraldic eagle, wings spread, clutching arrows of war, and an olive branch of peace. The design was intended to represent strength and stability, and these coins were part of everyday American life. But life in 1898 was anything but ordinary. That year, the Spanish-American War erupted, and the United States was thrust into its first real test as a rising global power. American soldiers were carrying barber quarters in their pockets as they traveled to Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. These coins weren't just money, they were silent witnesses to history. That historical context alone makes the 1898 issue fascinating, but when we talk about errors, we move into a realm of true rarity. Let's break down what makes the 1898 error barber quarter so valuable. First is the rarity of the year itself. While the mintage numbers were significant, survival in high quality was not. Most of these coins saw decades of circulation. They were used during wartime, spent in saloons, passed around in general stores, and handled until the details were nearly flat. To find any 1898 barber quarter in pristine condition is rare enough. But add an error into the mix, and suddenly you're dealing with a once-in-a-lifetime rarity. A double die verse from 1898, for example, is known to exist, with Liberty's motto appearing distinctly doubled. These coins are numismatic gold mines. Dramatic off-center strikes are even rarer, with examples showing Liberty's face half gone from the coin, creating a visually stunning error that collectors will fight to own. Wrong planchet strikes, say, a barber quarter mistakenly struck on a smaller dime blank, are virtually unheard of, but when they surface, the price can push into the $60,000 or $67,000 range. Auction history confirms this incredible demand. In one sale, an 1898 error barber quarter with a dramatic off-center strike shocked bidders when it realized over $55,000, far surpassing pre-auction estimates. Another example, a double die with crisp doubling visible on the motto and Liberty's profile, brought in around $60,000, and perhaps the most jaw-dropping. A wrong planchet strike, one of the very few known, hammered at $67,000 after a fierce bidding war. These aren't hypothetical numbers, they're the real results of collectors willing to pay fortunes for the rarest and most beautiful mistakes in American coinage. What also adds to the artistry and durability of the barber design itself. Though often criticized in its time for being too plain or uninspired, today collectors admire its classical look and its connection to an important period in American history. Each coin is like a time capsule, carrying with it the spirit of 1898, an era of war, invention, and change. To own an error from that year is to own not just a coin, but a tangible reminder of America's past. Combine that with the fact that so few error coins from 1898 survive, and you have the perfect recipe for record-shattering values. Collectors know that when it comes to coins, rarity drives the market. And when rarity combines with history, condition, and error status, the results are explosive. That's why these coins can soar past climb to, and in extraordinary cases reach $67,000. Each sale sets new benchmarks and reminds the collecting world that treasures still exist, waiting to be uncovered. And it's not only seasoned collectors who dream of finding one. Beginners, hobbyists, even families sorting through old change, all of them share the same hope that one day they'll stumble across the coin that changes everything.